Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering Barcelona defeating Rayo Vallecano behind Dani Olmo's winning a goal. We'll talk about United agreeing on a deal with PSG for around £50 million for Manuel Ugarte. We'll talk about Vincent Kompany's first Bundesliga game in charge as Bayern Munich after they defeated Wolfsburg 3-2. And we're also going to talk about City defeating Ipswich Town 4-1. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show where I'll be giving you my thoughts on some of the top soccer headlines going on in the soccer world. If you got a question during the show, we want to hear it. Your input is a big part of what makes the show great, and we thrive on your energy and insight. Whether it's a quick comment, a thoughtful question, or opinion, you just have to share. Don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. Now, if you want to make absolutely sure your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that. Use the super chat feature. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. This guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We really rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead, let us know what you're thinking. Hit that super chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and exciting as possible. And if you prefer, you can also go to gsmcpodcast.net to tip, donate, and leave a comment or question there. We couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you as part of our community. We have to start off, though, with Barcelona. Dani Olmo, in his debut, coming off the bench, gets the winner as Barcelona defeat Rayo Vallecano in a come-from-behind victory after actually going down early in the game, down 1-0 in the 9th minute behind the goal from Unai Lopez. Hansi Flick makes some adjustments, and Barcelona come out in the second half to get 2 goals. Pedri in the 60th minute, and the big one that everyone's talking about, the winning goal from Dani Olmo in the 82nd minute. Before we analyze the game, some bad news coming out of Barcelona camp. They fear that Marc Bernal has suffered an ACL injury. Hansi Flick very pessimistic about it. They believe he suffered an ACL injury in the win. He was forced off in the final moments of the match in Vallecas. But yeah, Hansi Flick, he says testing will come on tomorrow, but they're fearing the worst. He said it's a sad victory. This is Hansi Flick. It's a sad victory because Marc Bernal is injured and it looks not so good. We have to wait and see how heavy it is. We win, it's okay. But you see the dressing room, nobody is happy. It's not good. He made a fantastic match. 17 years old, such a performance. It hurts. And he did. He had a very good game. And being 17, and suffering that sort of injury, it's really, really bad injury. Disappointing for Barcelona, though. Very disappointing, because he had a great game in that midfield, kind of playing that holding midfield role. And that's sort of a position that Barcelona don't really have a natural player in that sort of position. They have Pedri, Dani Olmo, they have Federico Valverde, who can sort of play in that position, but that's sort of away from what he does best. That's not what Frankie de Jong. Now, Marc Bernal, he was 17 years old, so to expect for him to be that sort of answer all season was a little heavy, but he would have definitely been a solid piece for them, and it's just a sad blow, not just for Barcelona, but for him just making his real first team debut, playing on the Barcelona main team and suffering injury after a great game that he had. Really sad news. But going back to the Barcelona, though, good come from behind victory after you're going into Vallecas, which is it's always a difficult when you're playing on on the away pitch in La Liga. It's never easy. It's always difficult. Um, it's always difficult, and then on top of that, going down early, 1-0, behind the goal from Unai Lopez, that really got the Vallecano crowd going. And I will say Barcelona, in the first half, Lamine Yamal, he was a little direct, had one opportunity where he was cutting it on his left foot, sort of a half decent chance. But apart from that, in that first half, they didn't create much. Rayo Vallecano deserved the lead, in my opinion. I thought they played a little bit more better football, honestly. But in the second half, Dani Olmo came on, and Barcelona looked so decisive. They looked very aggressive. The opportunity, the goal could have came earlier, but with the chances that they were creating, Lewandowski had a chance. Lewandowski had multiple chances, actually. But the breakthrough actually comes from, and it's a player who, he's not really known for his goal scoring, and the way he got the goal, I've been saying for a while, Pedri has huge quality in terms of, being able to, his passing range, his ability to pick out a ball, and his close control and touch and all that. But what's something he doesn't have that aggressive mentality of trying to run at players, get past someone and open up an opportunity for not just someone else but for himself. I don't see that much often. And what we saw from Pedri is he pick up the ball in midfield and he sees green grass in front of him and take the space and use his speed, because he doesn't have electrifying speed, but he does have pace, and he's willing to take on the players, get past. He's willing to take a space, get past the player, and then he played the ball into Rafinha, and then what he does is he continues his run. He finds an open spot on the pitch, and he receives the ball and in a good goal scoring position, and he doesn't hesitate and he strikes it. And that's what we need to see more from Pedri, taking space. Because now with Dani Olmo is really good at finding pockets of space in midfield. With Dani Olmo being in there, he's gonna attract attention from the center backs. When he makes those late runs, Dani Olmo, there's gonna be attention that are put on him because of Dani Olmo's ability to get a goal. That's gonna leave Pedri other areas, other pockets on the pitch where he's gonna have room to take on a strike. And I can see him being if he's willing to go forward and find pockets of spaces like Dani Olmo does, I think he will be willing to find open places, because the attention that's going to be put in on Lamine Yamal, Robert Lewandowski, Dani Olmo, Pedri, he's going to have space to operate it. We saw that in this game already with him being able to get the goal. And again, as I was saying, Barcelona, they just looked different team in the second half. They created a few opportunities. Lamine Yamal had one. Lewandowski, I thought he should have done better on the follow-up. Doesn't really get on it. But then he's able to get it through, and VAR eventually ruled it out. But it was showing there was a confidence going for Barcelona. They were creating more and more opportunities, and we were all thinking, okay, the way Barcelona is going right now, a winner could be coming. And it was kind of just poetic justice that the winner came from Dani Olmo making his debut after not being able to play in his first two games because of the issues with I believe it was the issues with La Liga registration due to Barcelona's financial woes. But we see Dani Olmo do what he did for Spain, pick up little pockets of space, shows his close control, his touch to be able to receive a pass, control it on the first touch, and lash it into the back of the net. That's what he is. Dani Olmo, he doesn't have shot power, or he does, but most of his finishes is all about precision, and it's his ability to control it, keep the control, pick it out, get it out of his feet on the first touch, and right away be able to kind of nestle it into the back of the net. And that's what he is. That's how his ability. He's good in terms of all-around midfielder, can do so much playing sort of alongside a striker. And again, I think with Dani Olmo being there, I think that is also going to open up space for the other Barcelona players as well. And yeah, it's great. Now I'd like to see how Hansi Flick makes it work with Dani Olmo, Pedri, and Frankie De Jong. When Frankie De Jong gets back, does this force Frankie De Jong to play more in a deeper role, which he's capable of playing. Again, I say this a lot, but that's not really his main. That's not really his main position. That's not what he does well, or that's not what he does the best. Does it force him to play that sort of role, or are they able to still get the best out of Frankie De Jong while playing Pedri and Dani Olmo? Whether that is maybe pushing Dani Olmo into closer to the attacking third, somewhere in one of those positions, so you can put in an extra midfielder, or I don't know. It remains to be seen how Hansi Flick wants to attack that. I think with Dani Olmo, wanting to do that, play Dani Olmo more within the front three, sort of in the attacking part of the pitch instead of a real central midfielder role. I think the loss of Bernal, who's really their only natural holding midfielder right now, I think that's gonna force. I don't think that's possible. I think Frenkie De Jong is gonna have to sort of play that holding midfielder role for this Barcelona team, because they don't have many options there right now. They really don't. Barcelona in the past, they would have been able to go get the best in class. They would have been able to get Rodri, the best Spanish holding midfielder. But this day and age, with the financial issues Barcelona have and kind of the downfall Barcelona has gone through, compared to the rise of Manchester City, they're not able to go and just bully Manchester City into selling Rodri. That's not the time, and this is not the time anymore for Barcelona at this point where Barcelona currently is financially, and in terms of just how the club is, they're just not at that point. But overall, strictly talking about this game with Barcelona, 3 wins from 3 in La Liga, being able to come from behind not only this time but twice now this season, looked comfortable, had some good patterns of play, showed some good energy, shown some signs of aggressiveness in the way they want to go about it, being managed by Hansi Flick. I think it's been a great start to Barcelona's season. I think this is the perfect start for Barcelona. That injury is a bad injury, obviously, but if you're just strictly looking at La Liga, they're the only team perfect right now in La Liga, 3 wins from 3. And it's a good start for Hansi Flick in his La Liga debut as manager. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll talk about United agreeing a $50 million deal with PSG for Manuel Ugarte.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we talked about Dani Olmo getting the winner in his debut as Barcelona defeated Rayo Vallecano. We move on to talk about United. They have agreed a $50 million pound deal with PSG for Manuel Ugarte. This is a deal that we've been talking about for a little bit now. For PSG to make for Manchester United to improve the ranks in that midfield. We know the issue they had in their last season with Casemiro sort of having a down year in his career, and with Scott McTominay leaving the club, with Scott McTominay leaving the club, it almost allowed United to take the sort of next level in terms of being able to negotiate with Manchester City, or with Napoli. No, not Napoli. They're selling Scott McTominay to Napoli, in terms of being able to take it to the next level in terms of their negotiations with PSG to sign Manuel Ugarte. Now let's talk about what Manchester United are getting. In Manuel Ugarte, they're getting a hard-nosed midfielder, physical, aggressive, being able to win duels, has athleticism to get around, to cover holes that maybe a fullback going forward might leave in defense, or be able to sit in between the center halves and do the dirty work in terms of defending as a number 6. But there's also enough quality there, enough ability to control the ball and dictate tempo, that he can play in midfield, and he has good ball control, and he's a good balance in there as well, in terms of having ability on the ball, but also having that physicality element that Casemiro just has it's gotten away from him. The athleticism, the physicality to be able to compete day in, day out in the Premier League is just not there for Casemiro. Now, Casemiro on the ball, in terms of being able to dictate tempo and being able to control with possession, he's still a very, very good player. The talent, the quality is not going to go away in terms of being able to control the ball. But as you age, the athleticism will go away. And that's what Manuel Ugarte will give this Manchester United team that Casemiro just can't anymore. We saw Casemiro last season, even when he was playing center half, he just defensively, he can't get around the way he used to. He was never really the most mobile in general, or most physical, more athletic sort of holding midfielder, but he was able to do just enough. He was able to get in passing lanes. He was able to, provide sort of protection between the center halves as a, with his sort of nasty nature, his physical nature. He doesn't have the ability now anymore to even get around and put in a nasty tackle, to save a counter-attack opportunity. He's just athletically not there to compete. Manuel Ugarte, he can. And really, I'd like to see how Erik Ten Hag will fit him in there initially, with the fact that, will he try to play him with Casemiro? Because they kind of, one will provide more the defensive role to it. The other will play the holding. The other, in Casemiro, he will control the ball, dictate tempo, be the man that receives the ball off the back line and really, sort of springs an attack, while Ugarte could just sit there next to him and just do a lot of the defensive work and athletically get around, and also be part in controlling with the ball, because he does have that ability, and just play Menu alongside with them, which will force, United to sort of sacrifice an attacker, because they're not going to get rid of Bruno Fernandes. So, right, you're going to have to get rid of one of the front three and kind of play with the more narrow attack. Or, the other option that United has is this, you sort of, move Casemiro to the bench. You kind of use him as a bit part of player, someone to bring in an experience, try to see games out, kind of what Luka Modric was for Real Madrid last season, what he will continue to be for Real Madrid this season, and play Ugarte in there with Kobbie Mainoo, because Ugarte and Kobbie Mainoo, that's really going to be the midfield partnership for Manchester United for the next, 5, 6, 7 years or so, in the next decade, to be honest, with Ugarte. He's only 23 years old, Manuel Ugarte, despite this being really his second move to a big club, going from, going to PSG and now going to United. It is his second move, but he's only 23 years old, and we know Kobbie Mainoo, he's essentially, or not essentially, he's a teenager, being 19 years old, you kind of have that midfield partnership basically for the next decade. Now Ugarte, he had 25 appearances for PSG, at PSG. He was one of, in his early in the 2023 season, he was decent in his first 4 League One games. He won the UNFP Player of the Month, or he was a nominee for the Player of the Month. He played really, really well in terms of being able to recover the balls for PSG in midfield. But, after those first couple of months in the season, Manuel Ugarte, he slowly started losing his place sort of in the PSG team, with Luis Enrique. And there was also, when he lost his place as a starter, and there was also reports in the media that Luis Enrique, didn't really like his sort of style of play. And Ugarte would, basically become a substitute for PSG for the rest of the season. The only time he'd really start the game is when players really needed to rest. And yeah, that's the interesting part of this. Manuel Ugarte, him with coming to United is not that he failed at PSG, because he only been there for one season, but he didn't light it up at PSG, and he was a sort of bench player for PSG, which maybe you could just put just wrong time, wrong club, wrong time with Luis Enrique coming in at PSG. He maybe just Luis Enrique did not like that sort of player, but it's still, whenever a player doesn't really take the next level, moving on to a big club, and he's already moving after 1 year, it makes you think, what is the problem there? Not saying there's any problem in terms of the player's attitude or desire or anything like that. I'm not trying to say that. But in terms of, is there limitations in terms of the quality of the player? Now, I will say, in defense of Manuel Ugarte, you could probably argue it's just the wrong place, wrong time, when you look at the fact that he was able to play for the Uruguayan national team. Now, the Uruguayan national team also has a strong influx in midfielders with Federico Valverde, De La Cruz, Ugarte, Rodrigo Bentancur, who actually was on the bench, De Arrascaeta. They have a strong, core of midfielders, and he was a starter, and he was a pivotal part in that, midfield, playing next to Valverde, doing a lot of the dirty work also for Uruguay. So, it's really, it's something I'm not hesitant about it. If I'm trying to analyze this, I'm not hesitant about calling this a good signing. I think it is a good signing. I think there is real quality there, but it does make you think, of his, he's a $55 million player. He's only 23 years old. Why are PSG allowing him to leave, this early? Why wasn't he a main first team sort of player for PSG? Is it really surely because he didn't fit? Because look, there is quality there. And you have to say, there also has to be some sort of ceiling there. If you're looking at it and he's not able to start, for PSG, there is a little bit of a ceiling there that clearly Luis Enrique saw. Instead, it led Luis Enrique to playing Fabiano Ruiz and the youngsters at Emery, Vitinha, which is more quality players in terms of technical ability, close control, also have abilities to big out ball, and they're three really, really good players, but they're all, sort of different players than Ugarte. But what I do think with Ugarte is his physical nature to him will make him a great player for the Premier League, because he has physicality. He will be able to handle the physical, what's the word? He'll be handled the physicality of playing in that midfield in PSG. He'll do the dirty work. I wouldn't say he reminds me of Roy Keane, but that's high remark. But he's not afraid to do the dirty work like Roy Keane will do. He's a Uruguayan. He's a prototypical Uruguayan, prototypical South American midfielder. So I think this will be a good signing from Manchester United. I do think he does have some quality there. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll talk about Vincent Kompany's first Bundesliga game in charge as Bayern Munich defeat Wolfsburg 3-2.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we talked about United agreeing a $50 million deal with PSG for Manuel Ugarte. We move on to react to Vincent Kompany's first game as manager for Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga as they get a Did they fall behind in this game actually? No, they didn't fall. Did they come from behind? Yeah, come from behind victory against Wolfsburg, 3-2. Behind the goals from Jamal Musiala, an own goal from Jakub Kaminski, and then the winning goal that came in the 87nd minute from Serge Gnabry, which is a good sign for Serge Gnabry to get involved early in the season with the winning goal. He's had sort of a down sort of time in his career over the past few years. Hasn't really he already took the next level, but hasn't really been at his best, and it's good that he's able to start off this campaign with a good start for Serge Gnabry because, well, in my opinion, he is a real quality sort of player, and if he's able to get back to some of what we saw early on in his campaign and in his European Championship, then not European Championship, early on in his campaign at Bayern Munich, early in his Bayern Munich career, I think he'll be he can get back to being a brilliant player, and being able to get this goal early on to the season, a winning goal, is a good way to get his confidence up, because there's some real quality. And also, another thing why it's important for him to get off early is he did miss the European Championship, and he wasn't an injury. He was dropped from the squad by Julian Nagelsmann that actually managed him at Bayern Munich. So there's real need here for Serge Gnabry to kind of get his career back on track, so he can get back into that Germany team as they approach the World Cup coming up in 2026. But going back to this Bayern Munich game, if you read off the stats, Bayern Munich dominated possession in terms of general play, 71% possession for Bayern Munich to 29% for Wolfsburg. You look at the statistics, 15 shots for Bayern Munich to 10 shots for Wolfsburg. 8 shots on target for Bayern Munich to 2 shots for Wolfsburg. We saw some real attacking intent, Jamal Musiala. We know Jamal Musiala is a brilliant player. We saw what he was able to do at the European Championships. We saw what he's been able to do over the past few years. He's an extreme talent, freak of nature in terms of being able to control the ball in tight spaces, his dribbling ability, his technicality. It's absolutely unbelievable. It's a player that, I dream of trying to play like. Those are just the sort of players dream about and wanting to be like. Just that quality. He's such a brilliant player, and I love watching him play. I love his close control. I love his touch. And he's able to get the opening goal. Not because of that, but just because he's at the right place at the right time, making sort of a gamble sort of run. But still, overall, he had a great game just because of his just pure ability. We saw the directness and the verticality that his name is mistaking me. Is escaping my head as I pull it up right now. But Sasha Boy, playing in that right back sort of role, getting up the field, with pace, with desire, with an electricity, and then being able to, find the cross. We saw Michael Olise, what he's able to do a little bit. He's going to be a brilliant player for Bayern Munich in terms of being able to create but also be able to, get onto his left foot and, create magical moments. I look forward to seeing that as we see more and more of him at Bayern Munich. Now, Wolfsburg, they were able, after the opening goal, they were able to get an equalizer shortly after the break. Came quickly, actually. Well, not they drew the penalty quickly. For me, it's again, it's bad defending. It's really bad defending that early on for the center backs to get caught out the way that they did, sort of with the simple ball played in behind, which forced Sasha Boye to sort of make like a sort of last ditch effort in there. It's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. And again, that's the sort of issues that Bayern Munich have had. And then I really don't understand how we can see what we've seen last season, and and still continue to try to play Kim Min-jae and Dayot Upamecano. The second goal, it comes off literally a Kim Min-jae mistake. I mean, an awful mistake, trying to sort of play the ball back to the keeper, doesn't get enough on it. A Wolfsburg player gets in the way, and then the Wolfsburg player is able to get onto it. And then on top of that, there was another opportunity that Wolfsburg could have potentially had through a mistake from Dayot Upamecano trying to play out. It's just like the same sort of players that were making the mistakes last season, that were costing Bayern Munich last season. Specifically, the Bayern center halves are out here starting this season exactly the same way, and Bayern Munich's attack had to bail them out. But going up against the better teams, going up against the better teams, Bayern Munich's attack will not be able to get this sort of back line out of trouble. And you hope, because Vincent Kompany has played center back and has played in the defense, he will be able to sort out that sort of weakness there, especially in those center halves position. But again, from the opening game, they looked exactly the same as we saw last season. Now, we'll give Vincent Kompany the benefit of the doubt because it'll take some time to fix this sort of, bad issue. But, we know, the issues with Kim Min-jae and Upamecano. And Bayern went out to sign Hiroki Ito, the Japanese center half. Now, is he going to be the answer? We don't know. We don't know if he's going to answer. He's going to be out for 2 to 3 months with the metatarsal fracture that he suffered in preseason. But is he going to be really the answer for Bayern Munich in terms of their center back issues? It remains to be seen. He was the new signing that came in terms of center half. But again, sort of those mistakes. And really, Bayern Munich were lucky. They should have went down again with the mistake that came from Upamecano trying to sort of playing the ball right into the Wolfsburg midfielder, which led to a one-on-one opportunity for Berns. It should have led to the third goal and potentially the winner for Wolfsburg. But instead, he plays it a little bit wide, and immediately 5-6 minutes or so later, Coman is able to get the ball in sort of a transition play. Great touch from they don't score off that, by the way, Harry Kane. They don't score off that, actually. Harry Kane ends up missing slightly, but a few minutes later on, they're able to get the winner, and it is Serge Gnabry that gets the winner for Bayern Munich, going from one end to the pitch to another. And that's the winning goal. But again, it's Bayern Munich's attack that's bailing out the defense against the better teams. It's not going to happen. Bayern Munich's defense, they need to tidy it up. And it's going to be critical because those mistakes that we saw last year, I mean, this is something, Bayern Munich have spent so much money on center halves and they still don't have a set center back partnership. It's not good enough. been bad sort of business by Bayern Munich in that center back position. There's no arguing it. And Bayern Munich is not necessarily a club that we associate with when it comes to bad business. They're very clever in terms of being able to pick out players like a Joshua Kimmich, like Alphonso Davies, like a Serge Gnabry, and like a Jamal Musiala, and make them like sort of brilliant sort of players eventually. Right? But in terms of what they've been able to do in center half position, the amount of players that they spent and bought in that position over the past few years, not just Kim Min-jae, Hiroki Ito, and Upamecano, but you go back to Matthias de Ligt, you go to Benjamin Pavard, a lot of Lucas Hernandez, a lot of center backs have been bought at Bayern Munich, but they still have not been able to sort of solve a major issue that they have there. So I think it's very, very important that they deal with that defense, or else, they'll be looking at a second year of not being Bundesliga champions, which is sort of crazy for Bayern Munich. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to City defeating Ipswich Town 4-1.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
For the break, we talked about Vincent Kompany, first Bundesliga game in charge as Bayern Munich defeated Wolfsburg. We move on to discuss Manchester City defeating Ipswich Town 4-1 in their home opener. And it was actually Ipswich Town that got the lead early on in the game through Sammy Smodics. That's a hard name to pronounce, but it came in transition through the Irish player Smodic. I don't know how to pronounce that name. I'll just call him Sammy. But it came through transition player through Smodic, and he's able to get that opening goal for Ipswich Town. And you're thinking, really, we know what Ipswich Town, and by the way, that was the only shot on target, only shot of the game. And you're thinking, wow, 7th minute, Ipswich Town lead. This is the perfect start for Ipswich Town. Now they can sit in, they can play 11 players behind the ball, make it tight, close spaces, keep it compact, and just force it to be as difficult for Manchester City and sort of hold on for dear life. Because Manchester City, with the energy that you saw from the crowd, in the fact that this is their first home game of the season as defending champs, it was going to be electric, and Ipswich Town were really going to have to hang on. Let's be realistic. And then I would say it finished 4-1, and at the end, it was a domination sort of game for Ipswich Town. But if it wasn't for this short stretch in the game, I think we could be having, I'm not saying Ipswich would have went on and, gotten a point or even won this sort of game if this stretch didn't happen. But I say the game would have been a little bit difficult. With this sort of stretch, it just completely changed the game, got the crowd into it, allowed Manchester City to gain confidence, while Ipswich Town fell apart. And it was two critical mistakes from Davis, Leif Davis, who kind of, dangles a foot in, going up against Savinho's sort of direct nature, taking on a fullback. But it was, Savinho was sort of in a position, on the edge of the box, sort of, going towards the byline. It was not Leif Davis did not need to put a foot in. It was very unnecessary tackle, and it handed City an easy opportunity and a penalty kick with Erling Haaland to get back in the game. It's a critical mistake, and you can make it in that sort of moment. And once that mistake happens, then you allow Manchester City to gain a little bit of confidence. They get the goal, the crowd gets into it, and then and then it came the second big mistake, which came minutes later, it came 2 minutes later, actually, not even minutes later. It came 2 minutes later, and it's Arnautović Muric, who actually playing against, not really playing against his former team because he never had an appearance for the first team, but playing against his former team. He came up the City youth ranks, and he was sent on loan a few times before being eventually sold to Burnley, in which he was sold to Ipswich Town a few years later. And then his first game back at the Etihad, he makes a critical mistake in terms of, I don't know what he was thinking, trying to sort of get past the player to, so he can, clear it, and he gets caught on the ball, and it leads straight into De Bruyne's pass, who's able to tap it into an empty net, 2-1. And then, the crowd is getting into it. This is their first game back since being Premier League champions. It's electric. Manchester City, they're gaining confidence. They're playing with energy, while Ipswich Town, their heads are dropping. They look brittle. They're on the verge of breaking. They're shattered. And then when Manchester City spell blood at the Etihad, they smell blood. And it led to a goal 2 minutes later. It was 1-0 Ipswich Town in the 11th minute. By the 16th minute, it was 3-1. Erling Haaland being able to get the second goal, sort of, being a little bit more direct. Manchester City was being able to play the ball in behind to Erling Haaland, who has that nature of just being an animal, a beast, as a center forward, making those runs in behind, sort of fighting for the scraps on long balls. He's able to sort of control it with his head, get past Muric, and also tap it into an empty net to make it 3-1. And from then on, the game was really over, since when Erling Haaland was able to get that initial penalty. There was not debate. They were with City equalizing that early on, Ipswich Town was just not going to be able to handle the momentum and confidence the City gained. And that 2-minute stretch, in terms of that bad play from Leif Davis and that horrible mistake from Muric, that stretch was a horrible stretch, and just completely lost Ipswich Town the game. And we know there was one way that Ipswich Town, they were gonna have any sort of shot to get a result at Etihad, and that was to defend with their lives and try to nick one. Well, they were able to nick one early on, but they made two critical mistakes. One mistake from Leif Davis, and then one mistake from Muric. You can't make those sort of critical mistakes against Manchester City. It's a learning. It's a good lesson. It's a lesson learned for Ipswich Town. They played two of their more difficult games early on this season, playing against City away and then playing against Liverpool. Now they can sort of ease themselves into the season with some easier opposition. But it was a learning lesson for Ipswich Town. As far as Manchester City, job done. They took advantage of mistakes when they were provided with the opportunities. They went down in early and they showed they can respond. Their atmosphere was electric. You saw the celebration from the players as well when they were able to get those goals early on. You could see that, even though it's a game that Ipswich Town, they're expected to win, it means something to these players. They're really into it. Gundogan, he was on the bench. He was able to sort of make his debut after coming back to the club. And it's overall a great performance for Manchester City. I will pick out, we know the players, we know, Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Erling Haaland, Jeremy Doku. We know some of the players and the quality we have, but I would like to pick out Rico Lewis. Rico Lewis had a pretty good season, not last season, but the year before. He had a pretty good season, had a few runs in there. And then last season, he wasn't really as involved as much as we expected him. But now, so far coming into the season, had a very, very good season, Rico Lewis. There's some real ability in there in terms of midfield. He kind of had a howler, in my opinion. There was an open goal, and he smashed it across the bar. Not embarrassing by any means, but a goal that he definitely should have taken. It was a bad miss. But overall, he had a good game in terms of being able to control the ball in the midfield, that real ability. He has good close control, good touch. I will say the player that has caught me by surprise, because I haven't seen him play much at Girona, is Savinho for Manchester City. Sort of a right winger, and a good technical winger, but also very, very direct in being able to get at fullbacks and take them on. And it's like a similar player to the other side, Jeremy Doku, and similar player to like a Lamine Yamal or a Nico Williams. Very, very direct, willing to take on players, and some real quality, real ability there. Good close control, good touch. Really, really impressed with Savio, and I like to see how Pep Guardiola continues to use him now with Phil Foden coming back. Is he gonna keep a spot in the team? Bernardo Silva, with his ability, I don't see Pep Guardiola gonna be benching him, especially him, his ability to cut on the left and being able to join into midfield and sort of control and dominate possession with his ability. I don't think Bernardo Silva is really. So I do think Savio, he's not going to be the starter game in, game out. But his directness, chasing a game, being able to bring a guy like him off the bench, being able to attack fullbacks one-on-one and put them in horrible positions, sort of put them on their back foot, and having to sort of guess which side Savio is going to take, whether he's going to go to the byline or cut into his left foot. And then once, if you do give him that little bit of space, that ability there to be able to pick out a ball or even to take a strike on his own, Savio is a very, very, very good player. And it's another good find for Manchester City. And he's also a good player for Brazil, now playing, because he's going to be able to play on that right-hand side, cutting into his left foot, which partners what you have with Vinicius playing on the left-hand side, cutting off to his right foot. And then, we know Erik, being 17-year-old, he's going to eventually, sort of taking the roles as that center forward for Brazil. I think they have the makings, Brazil, of a good front three there. And then you have players like Rafinha and Rodrigo off the bench. But Brazil sort of, the attack is, is getting molded. The issues there is defensively. But going back to Manchester City, overall quality win for Manchester City. Good start for them. And, they have that Arsenal team behind them that are going to be chasing them all season. So you want to take advantage and get 3 points every game in, game out. That really is what it is for City and Arsenal this day and age in the Premier League. You blink once and the other team is going to jump over you. And maybe that's why we saw those sort of celebrations from Manchester City, because they know it's going to be a difficult task to keep Arsenal off their backs in this Premier League campaign. Before the break, we're going to take a short break here. When we come back, I'll answer this question I see in the chat, and we'll also react to some of the top soccer headlines going on in the soccer world. Before the break, we talked about City defeating Ipswich Town 4-1. We move on to react to some of the top soccer headlines. I will answer this question in the chat coming from Anthony Manzano. So, are there any young players in the youth system for Spain at striker, midfield, or defending that you can see choosing the United States? We can choose either country because of the amount of talent at each of those positions for the youth systems and for Spain. These kids might feel they have a better chance of playing for the United States. Spain does have a lot of youth sort of players, youth sort of quality. I do not know any dual national though that can represent both Spain and the US, period. I don't know any sort of players coming up that can represent Spain and the US. Maybe there's one I'm missing. Maybe there's something I need to do more research on, but not one I can think of the top of my head. But I definitely know there's teams from other countries in the world that have sort of dual nationals. You know, we see this U.S. team right now. They benefit a lot from a lot of dual nationals. Anthony Robinson, who can play for England. Sergio Dest, who can play for the Netherlands, who actually wasn't involved in Copa America because of injury. Tim Weah can represent, his father's country in Libya or France, the country of his birth. There's a lot of players. Balogun, who can represent England. Yunus Musa, that can represent England or Italy or Ghana for that matter. There's just a lot of players that there's a lot of players in the U.S. setup right now that can represent another country. But right now, do I know any youth players? Because Spain does develop a lot of youth players, you're right. But I don't know any American-Spanish dual national coming up the ranks. Not that I know at the top of my head. Maybe I'm missing. I know a few players here and there that's involved in Spanish setups, but are strictly U.S. youth players that are involved in setups in Spanish clubs. But no U.S. Spanish sort of dual international. But going back to the main topic of discussion here, it's official. It's been announced. Mikel Merino, he's going to be a player for Arsenal. He's going to be signed from Real Sociedad for 37.5 million, 37.5 million euros. He signed a 4-year deal, and it's going to be 32.5 million euros initially with 5 million in add-ons. He's going to be a great player, sort of fitting in that midfield role, and he's going to be an important part for Arsenal. Edu, speaking of the transfer, saying, "We are so happy to have completed the transfer of Mikel Merino. This has been another great team effort from many people at the club to finalize the transfer of a player who attracted interest from a number of clubs over the summer. Mikel was a key target for us this summer, and we identified him as a player who can fit perfectly into our squad and profile to improve us as we aim to build on our strong performances of last season." Mikel Arteta speaking about him, saying, they both are Mikel. Speaking of Mikel Merino, Mikel will make our squad significantly stronger with his technical ability together with a strong and positive character and personality. And I think he will be a good addition in midfield. He wins duels. He's willing to compete in terms of the midfield combat. And he also has the ability to make runs into the box and get on the end of things with his height and be sort of a threat on set paces. We know he scored the goal for Spain to get them into the European Championship semifinal when they defeated Germany. He got the winning goal at the end of extra time. So there's real quality there in Mikel Merino, real ability there. And yes, overall, great signing for them. Wojciech Szczesny has retired. The 34-year-old said this on Tuesday after he left Juventus with mutual agreement after sort of being pushed out of the club with Thiago Motta in this new project. Szczesny, he started his career in terms of his club career with Arsenal, and then he moved on to win the Serie A 3 times, with Juventus. He's also had sort of periods at Brentford and Roma in between. He's also been a main sort of goalkeeper for Poland over the past few years or so, despite stiff competition from Fabianski. He played 84 times for Poland. And he also was their goalkeeper at this past European Championship. Szczesny talking about it, saying, I left Warsaw, my hometown, in June of 2006 to join Arsenal with one dream: to make a living out of football. Little did I know it'd be a start of a journey of a lifetime. Everything that I have and everything that I am, I owe to the beautiful game of football. Yeah, you know what? Wojciech Szczesny, he's a great goalkeeper, had a great, consistent sort of career. He's a real... he has a real good character to him too. I see, when he gets drawn for penalties, you never really see him argue and whine or anything. He's never really that sort of player to take the, to sort of embarrass his defenders, kind of berate at them, which sometimes is necessary, but he never shows that sort of ability. He's always been a little bit more stoic. I remember at this European Championship, I forgot what game it was. I believe it was against... what game was it against? But he gets called for a penalty, in which I really thought he was it was unfortunate that he was called for a penalty, because he sort of got hit in the head as he sort of dived for the ball. He got hit in the end. It was against Austria in the 78th minute. He gets drawn for a penalty after the player kind of glides past him, but he was already there, and he sort of gets hit in the head. And for me, I just really didn't think it was a penalty. But instead of arguing, he just sort of like taps the referee like, my bad, I'm sorry, and it just continued to sort of validate my opinion in terms of his character. And really, he's a great player and great career, and I wish him good luck in his next endeavors. Nottingham Forest, they have rejected loan offers for Matt Turner. They want to sell him on a permanent transfer. He's had a difficult time, Matt Turner, at Forest since joining them last year from Arsenal, and now him wanting to get on his way out because he's not really the number one at Nottingham Forest anymore. In fact, he hasn't even been in the squad in their last 2 Premier League matches. He wants to be out. Some sad news coming out. Nacional defender is Queredo. Nacional defender Juan Iscarreto, Uruguayan, for Uruguayan club. Nacional has collapsed. He did collapse on the pitch last Thursday, and it's been announced that he has officially passed away in the hospital days later. He was taken into the ambulance off the pitch to the Albert Einstein Hospital, and he was treated with intensive care. The hospital said in a statement that Izquierdo, he died as a result of a brain death following cardiopulmonary arrest associated with the cardiac arrhythmia. And it's devastating news. Nacional, writing about it, or wrote on X, they said, "It is with the deepest sorrow and shock in our hearts that the Club Nacional announced the death of our beloved player Juan Iscarreto. We express our most sincere condolences to his family, friends, colleagues, and loved ones. All of Nacional is mourning for his irreparable loss." Uruguay, they suspended all football activities this past weekend due to the concerns over his health, with him being at the hospital. And Alejandro Dominguez, who's the president of CONMEBOL, he also came out with a statement. South American football is in mourning, pain, and it really is. Luis Suarez speaking about it, saying, "Pain, sadness, it is hard to explain. may he rest in peace. I wish a lot of strength for his family and friends. It's really sad sort of news whenever sort of a player that's still playing has passed away, and in the nature and the fact that he didn't pass away on the pitch, but it was a result of something that happened on the pitch that he later passed away from in the hospital. It's really sad to see that, and it's really a hard thing for a lot of these sort of his teammates, the league itself, something to move on from. But I'd like to wish well wishes in terms of his family and send condolences to all of them. It's just a devastating loss, and that's just sometimes just life. Life is precious, and it can be taken away any time. So love your family, love your friends, and forgive everyone that you can. That's a sad way to end off, but thank you guys for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. So thank you once again. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Let's go.